Hello, everyone. Very good morning and good afternoon to each one of you. Let me take the honor to thank you all for joining us today. Couple of things before we start. We request you to all please mute your phones during the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, please post them to the host or co-host on the WebEx chat. We will respond to those questions at the end of the presentation in the order received. If any questions are left unanswered due to time constraints, we will respond to them separately over an email. We're also recording this session and it will be available for all registrants. For today's masterclass, Driving Exponential Efficiency in App Cache Application with AI, we have with us John Selleck. John is the President of Revenue Management Associates, an account receivables and order to cash consulting company. He has 32 years consulting experience with proven performance in order to cash process. John has started working in a broad range of industries and has worked with over 250 clients. Prior to his consulting career, John spent 10 years in finance with International Paper and with a medical equipment company. Over to you, John, to take us through the masterclass.
Thank you, Akshay. And hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to spend a half hour with you today and talk about what is a fairly exciting topic. Exciting because of the new developments in this arena. And referring specifically to some really major advancement in digital technologies, we'll talk about their impact on one business sub-process, cache application. But I think it illustrates the broader application as well to other business processes as well. Let's talk about cache application today, but also contrast it to what I call yesterday's cache application. And the big move forward, the big news is artificial intelligence and the way it substantially accelerates and improves the cache application process. It will perform 80 to 90% of what the Cache App team would do. And in that regard, it's a huge step forward. And just at the bottom here, a little schematic for those of you who have been involved with this function for a while. You recognize some of this evolution, from an all manual cache application process, the advent of optical character recognition, which is given today, was actually a nice advancement. The ability to scan checks, scan remittances, and other relevant documents. And this actually really gave rise to spread and the enlargement of the bank lockbox business. And that's how it went for many, many years. And then a few years ago, robotic processing automation became a reality. And in essence, RPA is a technology that emulates a human being's interaction with an ERP system. And it's quite powerful, quite useful. But it has its limitations, particularly in onboarding and adjusting to change and new inputs. And that brings us to artificial intelligence, AI. And I know you've heard a lot about it. A lot of coverage in the press, a lot of discussion, a lot of articles. And in many of those articles, it's framed as solution or the technology of the future. But it's here. The future is now with artificial intelligence. Let's take a second and step back and talk about yesterday's cache application. Now that's my term. What is yesterday's cache application? For a number of companies, it's still today's cache application. But the good news is there's now a very cost-effective, very real opportunity to move that ahead exponentially. So to characterize yesterday's cash application, mostly or significantly automated, yet still a heavy manual content. Speed, not its finest attribute, and prone to error. Basically, what that comprised of is having your customers send paper checks to a bank lockbox, and the bank performed some nice services. First of all, depositing the checks and making that cash available same day or next day, and then scanning all the checks and remit documents, keying the required remittance data into a file, which was then sent to their customer, who uploaded it into their Cash App engine and had the Cash App engine apply those payments to the open invoices. Inevitably, there would be kickouts. There would be the odd customer who would send in their remits in some sort of file, Excel, various formats. Some could be uploaded, some not. And at the end of the day, there was still a significant volume of Cash App people or collectors contacting customers saying, hey, we got your payment. Thank you. Not clear what it is you're paying here. So please tell us. And the cash engine that was used was contained within the ERP. And if you're like 90% of my clients, all they ever got from ERP was the plain vanilla capability. And when they asked for upgrade, optimization, or customization, the reply from the corporate IT department was, well, we've got higher priorities. It'll probably be 2 years before we get to that. So in that environment, yes, AutoCash was a big leap forward in regard to manual cash application, but still it generated inadequate hit rates. Yesterday's Cash App, worked the basic hours a day, 5 days a week, relied heavily on a expensive lockbox. And as I said, only had more people, higher bank fees, slightly speed than you would like. And I call it yesterday's cash application, again, for a number of you listening today. It may still be today's Cash App. So if we take a minute and kind of envisage the new normal, reimagine. Well, let's reimagine it. And what are some of the elements? Well, the first one is cognitive data capture, which basically means that the AI-powered digital assistant, which we at Emagia call GIA, you'll learn a little bit more about that later, actually can go in, read the data, extract it, and put it in a format that can be used to apply the payments to the open invoices. And that cash application engine is also AI-driven. There's a lot of machine learning and progressive improvement that takes place. So it gets better and better on and with frequent repetition. Another nice feature for the new normal in Cash App is deductions processing. Typically, a customer would make a short payment, deduction would be created, and it would just sit there on the accounts receivable ledger on the customer's account, awaiting discovery from somebody to take some action. But with GIA, that short pay is created and can be routed to a pre-designated resolver for some action. And then the last feature I want to talk about here is what's called digital payment wallets. And without getting into a lot of detail, this just enables the customer pay in the format, generally an electronic format, that they prefer. And more and more customers looking for paying by electronic mode as opposed to sending in a paper check. All right. So that's a kind of review. Let's get into a little more detail. And you've heard me use the phrase exponential efficiency, exponential productivity versus incremental. And why do I say that? Well, here's some of the features of it that drive that exponential advancement. As I said, the AI-powered digital assistant does most of what a human being does in the Cash App function. We talk about multiple customer sources, multiple formats, how machine learning enables the digital assistant to get better and faster with repetition. Because remember, virtually every customer has their own unique format for presenting remittance data. Maybe your invoice number is in the middle body of the document. Maybe it's in the upper right-hand corner, lower left-hand corner. Well, over time, the digital assistant learns where it is by customer, which increases its speed, efficiency, and accuracy. And the cash engine is contained within the AI application. And that's why we've been able to experience hit rates all the way up to 85, 95% hit rate. Talked about the automatic creation of deductions, which is great because deductions just sitting around unworked, unactioned, basically just age out and get written off. And I mentioned earlier too, we talked about digital payment wallet. It's more than making alternate modes of payment available. The digital assistant can actually work with your customers and respond to your customers to help guide them through the process for making payments in the electronic mode that they prefer. And then, of course, it works 24/7, 365. And our experience, particularly if you're selling to the small and medium-sized business segment, is a lot of those businesses pay their invoices after normal business hours. Maybe it's the owner, the proprietor, the controller, who knows, making those payments. And that's why the round-the-clock access processing is so valuable. A little bit more detail here. So when we say that the AI digital assistant does 80 to 90% of what your Cash App staff does, how does that shift their work? Well, it goes from the yesterday's reading and key punching data to spending more time to manage exceptions. And there are always exceptions. And ultimately that serves your customer better. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, but in the next slide or two. But there is definitely a customer service and a customer satisfaction element here. In addition, as you progress with AI, the use of the lockbox goes way down. Most companies still need to maintain a lockbox because remember, you want those payments deposited in your account and the cash made available. So let's not ignore that function. But AI enables you to direct a lot more of those payments via an electronic means and cut the fees. I mentioned this works best in conjunction with a customer change campaign. And what is it we're trying to change? Well, change the mode in which your customers pay and try to persuade them. Now, a lot of them already want to abandon paper check and pay via any of a number of electronic modes. But for those that don't, a customer change program can attempt to persuade them. Obviously, some won't change no matter what you do, but there are ways to try to shift a good portion of them. In the end of the day, what does AI-enabled cash application result in? Well, need for fewer people, lower bank fees, and generally faster and more accurate cash application. And why is that important? Well, particularly now in this pandemic-driven economy, many, if not most, of your customers have had their financial condition deteriorate significantly. So they're a much more risky credit. And for a lot of customers, you'll be managing them and managing your credit risk and cash flow on an order-to-order basis. We're not shipping you the next order till you pay for the last one, or you pay some amount, varies by customer, whatever you can negotiate. Well, nothing is worse than to hold an order for a customer because of a past due condition when in fact they actually paid those invoices a couple days ago, but your account's status don't reflect those payments. So you're holding an order for invoices that have already been paid. Tremendous dissatisfier to a customer. Slows down fulfillment of orders, slows down your future cash inflow, and creates extra work. You got to go through the order hold routine unnecessarily. So that's a big improvement, picking up speed and accuracy in application, particularly in this economy. Let me just take a few more minutes here to go into maybe the next level of detail. And there's, on the right there, you see a picture of Gia, the AI-powered digital assistant offered by Emagia. And we've talked about AI and what it does, and we say, okay, it extracts remittance data from multiple sources with multiple formats. And here's some examples. The customer vendor portals. Now, use of vendor portals is increasing rapidly. And certainly, I think you'll find most of your larger customers have a vendor portal. And sometimes those vendor portals can be a little annoying in trying to, establish connections with them, logging on, learning them, learning how to manipulate, how to access the information you're looking for. But at the end of the day, those vendor portals provide a lot of information. All your invoices they've successfully received will be on the vendor portal. And that's something to be taken for granted. So if you send them 100 invoices in August, you look at the August 31st statement and only 97 of those invoices are listed, you got a problem. We'll tell you the status of the invoice. It's paid. Not yet paid, but a date to be paid. And also, if there's a deduction looming, it will tell you how much and generally indicate some sort of reason code. So the research and resolution efforts started. So customer vendor portals and getting that information quickly and accurately and posting it to your accounts is very important. If you have your own electronic invoice presentment and payment portal, customers will come in, make a payment, and select the invoices they want to pay. Well, that's great information. Let's let Gia gather that information and feed it into the auto cache. Inevitably, you'll still have customers where it's just not that easy, and they'll be sending various files and statements to you, showing where to apply their payments. And then you may hopefully you still have some customers on EDI and those transmissions. So it can take that valuable information from all these formats. And some of the other features certainly integrates with your banks, your own ERP. We talked about the auto cache engine, talked about the there's a preset tolerance level for automatically writing off small residual balances. And all the while, it's accumulating all this cash inflow information by customer. With the right analytics, that can be very useful in doing cash forecasting. And ultimately, it outperforms RPA when encountering new customers, new formats, new information. It does a much better job and gets up to speed much faster. So we talked about the benefits. We talked about the feature at a high level, some of the attributes and all. And we put together this illustrative scenario. Now, certainly companies' banking costs and fees vary widely, affected by a lot of different functions, especially are you borrowing or not borrowing from them. But we together this scenario showing a company that gets 100,000 payments annually, excluding the card payments. And under today's cash application, they need 6 people. They get an auto cash hit rate of 55%. And due to their inability to accommodate some of the more recent payment modes, they're still getting a lot of paper checks. And what does that cost them in terms of people and bank fees? You can see at the bottom there, estimated at $444,000 a year. And then let's contrast that with the 2020 prototype. Same volumes, hit rate goes up to 90%, need for people goes down by 2/3. There's a shift in payment modes, which reduces bank fees, and it projects to a cost reduction of 58%. Now, how many business processes do you have with a 58% cost reduction opportunity? Probably not many. And even if it's 48% or 38%, still a huge opportunity. And that's why we use a term like exponential. We're not talking about an incremental benefit. We're talking about a big leap forward here. Best way to illustrate this is with a story. Tell a story, right? And here's a great one. One of our clients, a good size, $3 billion in revenue, implemented a number of the AR Emagia modules, but including the Cash App module. And let's look at the complexity here. 58 business units, 44 countries, 7 or 8 different languages, 170 banks. Operating in Europe is where we focused on this story here. And, you know, despite the EEU and all their efforts, there's still individual country rules, regulations, conventions, practices that can vary significantly by country. And despite all that, the auto match hit rate doubled from 45% to almost 90%. So that cuts the manual work in half. I mean, a huge step forward. So this shows you the power of AI-enabled cash application. And this was a very difficult laboratory here to prove that in. All right, benefits. We've kind of mentioned these all along. The productivity, the bank fee savings, the faster and more accurate application of cash. And while this brings very valuable cost benefits, it also enhances that customer experience. And particularly in this economy, when you will probably be working on an order by order basis with a number of your customers. And you improve that customer experience, that customer sat. You all know the chain reaction as it goes down and ultimately improves the revenue and the profit. So what do we want to take away from today? Well, first of all, AI-enabled cash application is a huge leap forward. Second, it's here today. It's not the system of the future. It's here today, available today, bringing benefits to companies today. And on a broader sense, AI does that for business sub-processes as well. But as they say, the future is now.
Thank you very much, John. That was a very insightful presentation. So let me just again remind the attendees to post in the questions that you might have in the chat window to the host or to the co-host. Let me look at that. So I've got a question, John. Is this capability available immediately, or is it still in the development stage?
No, it's available now. We're able to tell that customer story. It's up and running. It's not on the drawing board. It's here today.
So I have another one coming in, which is, can this AI cash application apply credit and debit payments and automatically clear the processing fee so no residual receivable remains on the AR ledger?
Yes, yeah. Auto matching of debits and credits is a nice feature. Again, a productivity enhancer. I've seen a lot of clients, even with SAP and Oracle, whatever reason, they still have to manually match and clear some credits. And that automatic small balance write-off feature we mentioned earlier on, I mean, does the same thing. Writes off the residual balance, and then that original invoice and payment are closed transactions. They move off the aged trial balance into the closed transactions file, which is a big help when you're dealing with names.
Thanks a lot, John, for that. Yeah, let me get to this next question. This is, does the digital assistant adapt to variation in customers' vendor portals?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does, and that's a good thing because there is a lot of variation in vendor portals, and again, the ability to find the information required, the remittance amount, the your invoice numbers that are being paid, and amounts being paid against those invoices. That's the critical information for the Cash App process. And GIA will learn and adapt to, for want of a better term, the idiosyncrasies of some of your customers' vendor portals.
Thank you, John. Let's see if there are any additional questions. Now, here is one. Can AI be used to extract information from a company's email box? Look at attachments within the email.
Yes. Able to read those attachments in whatever format, and generally I would think those attachments are an Excel or a PDF file with the remittance information, and able to extract that key information and feed it into the AutoCash engine.
Thank you, John. Thank you. I don't see any other question coming over here. So let me just remind the audience over here that if you have any questions, please post here in the chat window. We'll take it up. We have about a minute or so. In the meanwhile, let me just remind you all that we have a next Emagia MasterClass session on Thursday, the 24th of September at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And the topic for our next Masterclass session is 3 reasons for B2B digital credit amidst COVID and beyond. So please go to our website, www.emagia.com, and book your seat so that we will be seeing you again in next Thursday. So look forward to see you there. I think we are on the top of the hour. Thanks a lot, John. Thank you very much for a fabulous presentation session today for our audience. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone.
And thank you very much, each and everyone joining us today. Take care. We're looking forward to see you next week.